He walked into that millionaire's garage just looking for work. But the man laughed in his face and said, "If you can make this Ferrari run, it's yours." He didn't know who he was talking to. What happened next left everyone silent. "But tell me, if you were in his place, what would you do?" He wasn't supposed to be there that morning. The sky was gray, the kind that promises rain but never delivers. Derek's shoes were worn thin, soles half torn, and his hands were rough, the kind that tell stories of grease, sweat, and years of fixing other people's broken things while his own life stayed broken. He'd been out of work for months. His old garage shut down without warning, leaving him and 10 others jobless. Since then, he'd been knocking on doors, trying every auto shop, every dealer, even people's driveways, asking if anyone needed a mechanic. But everywhere he went, it was the same. "Sorry, we're not hiring," or worse, the looks that told him he wasn't welcome. That morning, he ended up in the wealthy part of town, a place where the streets were too clean, the air smelled like money, and people looked at him like he didn't belong. He was ready to turn back when he heard something, the growl of an engine that refused to start. He followed the sound and found a massive mansion with 3 luxury cars lined up like ornaments. The last one, a red Ferrari, sat silent, hood open, battery dead. Around it were 3 men in polo shirts and gold watches laughing. One of them, tall, white-haired, and wearing a Rolex that could pay Derek's rent for a year, was barking orders. That was Mr. Clayton, a self-made millionaire known for his arrogance and temper. "Damn thing's useless," Clayton shouted, kicking the tire. "I've had 5 mechanics look at it. None of them could make it run." Derek hesitated, standing just outside the gate. He didn't plan to speak, but his instincts as a mechanic kicked in. He looked at the way the hood was tilted, the way the cables hung loose, and he knew almost instantly what the problem was. He took a breath and said softly, "Looks like your ground cable's corroded, sir." The men turned. Clayton squinted at him. "What did you say?" Derek swallowed hard. "Your ground cable. It's rusted out." "That's why it won't start," Clayton's friends laughed. "Who's this guy?" one of them said. "You work for the city or something?" Derek stepped closer, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I'm a mechanic. I used to work over at Johnson's garage before it shut down. I could take a look if you want." Clayton smirked, eyes scanning Derek from head to toe, his dirty boots, oil-stained shirt, and sunburned face. "You?" he said mockingly. "You think you can fix my Ferrari when certified mechanics couldn't?" Derek nodded slowly. "I can try." The laughter came instantly. One man actually bent over, wiping tears. "Oh, this is good," he said. "Come on, Clay, let him try." "What's the harm?" Clayton smiled, the kind of smile that isn't friendly. "All right," he said. "Tell you what, pal. You get this thing running, I'll give it to you. The whole car. But when you fail, and you will, you're cleaning up my driveway." "Deal," Derek paused. He knew the man wasn't serious. He knew the bet was a joke, but something inside him, the exhaustion, the humiliation of being looked down on every day, made him say it. "Deal." The air went still. Clayton raised an eyebrow. "You got some nerve," he said, stepping aside. "Go ahead. Show us what you got." Derek approached the car quietly, ignoring the whispers behind him. He touched the hood like it was something sacred. The metal was cold, smooth, and heavy. Underneath, the engine looked beautiful but dead. Years of neglect and arrogance had turned it into a lifeless shell. He rolled up his sleeves. "You got a wrench?" Clayton crossed his arms. "Use your hands, genius." Derek didn't respond. He'd fixed cars with less, sometimes just a screwdriver and his own patience. He began checking the lines, tracing each wire, his mind clicking through possibilities like gears turning in an engine. The men started whispering, then laughing louder. "He doesn't even have tools," one said. "Watch, he's going to shock himself." But Derek kept working. His fingers found the corroded cable, exactly where he thought it would be. He brushed the rust away with the corner of his shirt, then twisted it just right, creating a clean connection. He checked the fuel line, clogged but fixable. He unclamped it, cleared the blockage with a piece of thin wire he kept in his pocket, a habit from years of improvising. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The laughter started to fade. Clayton frowned. "You done yet?" Almost, Derek said quietly. He stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, and nodded toward the driver's seat. Try it now. Clayton rolled his eyes but motioned to one of his friends. Go ahead. Let's end the show. The man climbed in, twisted the key, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, with a sudden roar, the Ferrari's engine came to life, deep and powerful, echoing through the driveway. Everyone froze. Derek didn't smile. He just stared at the engine, listening to its purr like a heartbeat he'd brought back from the dead. Clayton's jaw dropped. You actually did it, he stammered. Derek stepped back, his voice steady. You said if I made it run, it's mine. The laughter returned, nervous this time. Come on, Clay, he's kidding, one friend said. You're not really giving it to him, right? But Clayton didn't answer. His pride was bruised, and his face had turned red. He looked at Derek, at the man he'd humiliated, who'd just done what no professional could. Then he forced a laugh. Yeah, good job, pal, he said, tossing a few bills on the hood. Here, take this and get yourself some real tools. The Ferrari's not going anywhere. Derek didn't touch the money. A deal's a deal, he said calmly. Clayton's smile disappeared. Watch your tone, boy, he said, voice low. You should be grateful I let you touch that car. The tension grew thick. One of the men whispered, Just let it go, man. But Derek stood his ground. You gave your word, he said. You said if I made it run, it's mine. Clayton stepped closer, his breath hot with anger. You don't come to my house and talk to me like that, he snapped. You think fixing a car makes you special? That car's worth more than your entire life. For a moment, no one moved. Then Derek quietly said, Maybe to you. But to me, it's proof that I can do what you said I couldn't. And with that, he turned and started walking away. Clayton called out, Hey, where do you think you're going? Derek didn't look back. Home, he said, to build something that's actually mine. The camera could have ended there, but what came next would make the entire neighborhood whisper for weeks, because 2 days later, that same Ferrari was seen driving out of Clayton's garage, not by him, but by Derek. That night, Derek couldn't sleep. The sound of that Ferrari's engine was still in his head, the roar that proved him right. He lay awake in his small rented room, staring at the ceiling fan that clicked with every slow turn. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy when your mind won't rest. He wasn't angry about the car. He was used to broken promises. What stayed with him was the look in Mr. Clayton's eyes. That disbelief, that pride shattering for a moment before it turned back to arrogance. Derek whispered to himself, One day I'll own something better than his. The next morning, he went back to his usual routine, small repair jobs around the neighborhood, patching up old trucks and fixing lawnmowers just to make rent. But something was different now. The people who'd seen what happened at Clayton's house started talking. By noon, half the town had heard about the man who fixed the Millionaire's Ferrari in 10 minutes. Some called it luck. Others said it was impossible. But one man named Mr. Reeves, who owned a struggling local car lot, saw potential. He called Derek that afternoon. Son, he said, I heard what you did. You got real hands-on talent? I've got a few old cars that need fixing. You help me sell them, I'll give you a cut. Derek accepted instantly. He spent the next few weeks working from sunrise to sunset, transforming dead engines into roaring machines. Word spread fast. People started lining up, not for Reeves, but for Derek. They called him the man who could make anything run. Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Clayton wasn't enjoying the attention. The story had gotten around. The rich man who mocked a mechanic and got shown up. His friends teased him at parties, and even his business partners made quiet jokes. But what really stung was what happened next. One morning, he tried to start that same Ferrari again, and it wouldn't budge. Dead, silent, no sound, no spark. He called the same luxury repair service he always used, but they couldn't find the problem. Electrical's fine, they said. Fuel line's fine. It's like it's been disconnected on purpose. Clayton's face turned red. On purpose? He was furious. He accused his staff, his neighbors, even his gardener. But deep down he knew the only one who could have done it was Derek. The next day, his black SUV pulled up outside Derek's small garage. The car door slammed, echoing like thunder. Derek looked up from under a hood and saw him standing there. Expensive suit, angry eyes. "You messed with my car," Clayton said flatly. Derek wiped his hands on a rag, calm as ever. "Your car? Don't play games. That Ferrari, it's dead again. You think that's funny?" Derek didn't smile. Maybe it just needs the right hands again. Clayton stepped closer. "Listen here, boy. You embarrassed me once. Don't push your luck." The air grew tense. Other mechanics in the shop went silent. Derek met his stare. "You made a deal. I fixed it. You broke your word. Now you want to talk about luck?" Clayton's voice rose. "That car's worth 200 grand. You think I'd just give that to some nobody?" Derek didn't flinch. "A deal's a deal. Maybe your word means nothing, but mine does," Clayton sneered. "You want it that bad? Fine. Come by my house tomorrow. We'll settle this the real way." He stormed out, leaving behind a trail of dust and tension. That night, Derek sat on the edge of his bed thinking. He knew Clayton was planning something, a trap, a humiliation. But something inside told him to go anyway. This wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about pride, dignity. Every man who'd ever been laughed at for not looking the part. The next morning, Derek arrived at the mansion again. The Ferrari was parked in the center of the driveway, surrounded by a small crowd. Clayton's friends, business partners, even local reporters he'd called to prove a point. Clayton greeted him with a fake smile. "You came," he said. "Good. Let's see if you're really as good as people say." Derek scanned the car. It looked fine on the outside, polished, clean, but he could tell something had been tampered with. He lifted the hood and immediately noticed a few wires were swapped. Someone had tried to sabotage the starter system. He looked up. "Someone's been in here." Clayton folded his arms. "Oh, really? You saying I messed with it?" Derek didn't answer. He went to work, slow and steady. The crowd murmured. Some whispered that he wouldn't pull it off this time. Others just wanted to see the millionaire's pride crumble again. Minutes passed. Sweat dripped down Derek's forehead. His hands moved with precision, rewiring, tightening, adjusting. Every move told a story of patience and experience. Finally, he stepped back. "Try it." Clayton smirked and got in himself this time. "Let's end this little fairy tale." He turned the key, and once again, the Ferrari roared to life. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. The sound was powerful, echoing like a challenge across the driveway. Derek didn't speak. He just looked at Clayton, waiting. Clayton stepped out slowly. His pride battled his ego, his face turning redder by the second. "You fixed it." "Again," he said. "Fine, you win." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the keys and held them out. But before Derek could take them, Clayton dropped them on the ground, smirking. "Pick them up." The crowd went quiet. Derek froze, eyes on the keys resting in the dust. He looked back at Clayton, who crossed his arms. "If you want it," he said coldly, "earn it properly." The silence stretched. Everyone waited to see what Derek would do. Then, slowly, Derek bent down, not to pick up the keys, but to brush the dust aside. He looked at his reflection in the car door and smiled faintly. He stood up straight. "You keep it," he said. "I don't need your charity." Clayton frowned. "What?" Derek stepped closer. "You don't get it, do you? The car wasn't the point. The point was proving that your money doesn't make you better than anyone." He turned and started walking away, leaving the keys where they lay. The crowd began murmuring, and then something unexpected happened. One of Clayton's business partners, a tall man in a gray suit, called out, "Hey, Derek! You ever think of working for someone who actually respects talent?" Derek turned. The man smiled. "I run a restoration company, high-end classics. We could use a man like you." Clayton's face went pale. "Reeves, you can't be serious." But the man ignored him. "Come by Monday morning," he told Derek. "We'll talk." The crowd clapped softly, not out of mockery, but respect. Derek nodded once and walked away without another word. Days passed. Then weeks. Derek started working with Reeves's company, restoring vintage cars from all over the state. His reputation grew beyond the small town. People drove hundreds of miles just to have him touch their engines. And then, one morning, something incredible happened. A flatbed truck pulled up outside his shop carrying a covered vehicle. The driver handed him a sealed envelope. Inside there was a single note. A deal's a deal. See, Derek frowned and pulled the cover off. There it was. The red Ferrari. Polished. Perfect. His eyes widened, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time he smiled, not out of pride, but peace. He didn't brag. He didn't post it anywhere. He just parked the car inside, cleaned his hands, and went back to work. Because to him, the Ferrari wasn't the reward. The respect he earned was. And from that day on, people remembered not just the man who could fix any engine, but the man who refused to let anyone break his spirit. It had been 6 months since Derek last saw Mr. Clayton. 6 months since that Ferrari rolled into his shop, not as a prize, but as a symbol of everything he'd overcome. The small-town mechanic everyone once ignored was now the man people waited weeks to see. His shop, Derek's Rebuilds, had grown from a rusty shed into a busy garage with a glowing sign and a reputation for perfection. Classic Mustangs, old Porsches, and vintage Rolls-Royces lined his lot, and every one of them carried a story, just like him. He never bragged, never gloated. When people asked about the Ferrari, he'd just smile and say, "It runs now. That's all that matters." But while Derek's name was rising, Mr. Clayton's empire was falling. It started with whispers, investors pulling out, clients refusing to renew contracts. Turns out arrogance doesn't pay bills forever. His luxury car dealership had been losing money for months, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Then came the headlines: Clayton Motors under investigation. Employees claim fraud, mismanagement. His name, once printed in gold letters, was now dragged across front pages, and in a twist no one expected. The man Clayton once mocked was now hired by the very companies that had stopped working with him. Derek didn't celebrate. He didn't have to. Karma was doing its job, quietly, perfectly. One Friday afternoon, as Derek was closing up the shop, a familiar black SUV pulled into the driveway. The door opened slowly, and out stepped Mr. Clayton. But this time, he looked different. Tired, thinner, like a man who'd been running from his own mistakes. His fancy suit was replaced by a simple jacket, his confidence gone. "Derek," he said softly. Derek wiped his hands on a towel, staring at him for a moment. "Mr. Clayton," he said evenly. "Didn't expect to see you again." Clayton hesitated, then nodded toward the Ferrari parked inside. "So it's still running. It always did," Derek replied. "You just didn't believe it could." Clayton looked around the shop. The place buzzed with energy, customers chatting, employees working, laughter echoing. It was the kind of success that didn't need to shout. "You built all this?" he asked quietly. Derek nodded. "With my own hands." "And a little faith." Clayton swallowed hard. "I came to say something." He paused, his voice cracking slightly. "You were right. I treated you like you were nothing, like your talent meant less than my money." He took a deep breath. "Now I've got more debts than dollars. My company's finished. My so-called friends? Gone." Derek listened but didn't speak. "I was wrong about you," Clayton continued. "You didn't just fix a car that day. You fixed something I lost a long time ago. Humility." He pulled something out of his coat pocket. A small envelope, old and creased. The car title. "It's officially yours now." Derek stared at it, silent. Clayton forced a weak smile. "I guess I'm finally keeping my word." For a long moment, Derek didn't move. Then he walked closer and placed his hand on the Ferrari's hood. "You know," he said quietly, "when I fixed this car, it wasn't about the money. It was about proving that skill, real skill, doesn't care about color, status, or who's watching." Clayton lowered his gaze. "I know that now." Derek took the envelope, not out of greed, but closure. "I hope you rebuild too," he said. "Not your business. Yourself." Clayton looked up, surprised. "You really mean that?" Derek nodded. "Everyone deserves a second chance, even the ones who don't think they need it." The two men stood in silence for a few seconds. Two lives that had started in the same garage, but on opposite sides of respect. Clayton turned to leave, but as he reached his car, he stopped. "Derek, yeah? If you ever need investors, call me. I may not have much left, but I owe you," Derek smiled faintly. Just pay it forward. Clayton nodded once, got in his car and drove away, and slowly, quietly, like a man who'd finally learned how to be humble. That night, as Derek locked up the shop, the wind carried the faint sound of an engine revving down the road. He smiled to himself, because now, when he heard that sound, it didn't remind him of humiliation anymore. It reminded him of victory, a quiet victory built not on revenge, but on respect. Weeks later, Derek's story caught fire again, this time on national news. A reporter filmed a segment titled, "From Humiliation to Honor, the mechanic who fixed more than just a car." The clip went viral. Millions watched the footage of him in his garage, working with that same calm focus, the red Ferrari gleaming behind him. In the interview, the reporter asked, "Derek, if you could say one thing to the man who once doubted you, what would it be?" He smiled gently and said, "Thank you, because if he hadn't tried to break me, I'd never have learned how strong I really am." The audience clapped. The clip spread everywhere, TikTok, YouTube, TV shows. People from all over the country came to meet him, to shake his hand, to tell him his story gave them hope. And one day, a letter arrived at his shop with no return address. Inside was a short message, handwritten on fine paper. "I sold my mansion. Started teaching at a trade school. Figured it's time to learn what real work feels like. Thanks for the lesson. See." Derek read it twice, then folded it neatly and tucked it into his desk. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't need to, because deep down he knew, sometimes the best revenge is watching someone become better because of you. That weekend, he took the Ferrari out for a drive. The sunset painted the sky in orange and gold as the engine hummed smoothly beneath him. He drove through the same wealthy streets where people once stared at him like he didn't belong. Only now, they turned to look in admiration. When he stopped at a red light, a kid in the next car rolled down his window and shouted, "Hey, mister! Cool car, how'd you get it?" Derek grinned. "I earned it." The light turned green. He pressed the pedal gently, and the car glided forward, fast, clean, unstoppable, just like him. Karma paid its dues. The man who mocked was humbled. The man who was humiliated became unstoppable. Because sometimes the richest man isn't the one with the money, it's the one who kept his dignity.